This week on Head to Head, new Rise of Skywalker featurette.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Mansell.
And I'm Darryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So I got to say, man, getting right into this whole thing, you know, normally we talk a little bit about
whatever.
Yeah, whatever. But I mean, there's just been so much Star Wars stuff coming out lately that it's, I don't know, I almost feel obligated now to just...
Yeah, we're just like overwhelmed with like so much stuff, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I actually kind of felt bad when, you know, you had to try to come up with the outlines for the next couple of weeks because it seemed like every single day this past week.
Yeah.
I mean,
actually hours a lot of times too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there was just constantly stuff that was just coming up and coming up and coming up. So, I mean, you know, there's like comics, there's, you know, book news, there's all this other stuff. But I mean, speaking of which, I am like halfway through Thrawn Treason now.
Okay.
And I have to say, I think I mentioned this before too, where I was talking about how good it was from the beginning. Now I can honestly say that, you know, reading like halfway through it, I mean, it is so good. I think I actually might like it a little bit better than Alliances.
Wow.
And that's really rare because Alliances dealt with Thrawn and Vader and Thrawn and Anakin. So I thought for sure that would be the one that I would want, you know, the most or whatever. But this one, like the plot of it is just so, it's kind of intricate and, you know, there's different things that are weaving in and out of it that I can't wait. And like I said, well, I think I'm a little more than halfway. I think I have maybe like 100, 120 pages out of like a 400 and something book. So I'm probably like somewhere between half and 2/3. So I can't wait to see how this thing ends. So I'm going to have to tell you guys, you know, and probably not by the next podcast, but maybe the ones after that, maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll have it finished and I can give a full proper report on it.
Question for you. So what kind of book do you think, or what kind of book is it? Is more like is like an action adventure type thing? Is it more of a political thing? Is it more of a spy thriller-ish type
All
vibe?
the above.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so it has
all the above.
Okay.
And the Grisks, which is like this new alien species that we were introduced to, which also, because there's a lot of books and things like that that are now starting to tie into Galaxy's Edge, which everybody thought was just going to be like, oh, it's going to be a big commercial for the theme park. But it's actually releasing like a lot of canon stuff, like, what is it called? Like Black Spire or something. Galaxy's Edge Black Spire, I think is the title. And it basically talks about like how the Resistance sort of rebuilt itself after The Last Jedi.
Okay.
And, you know, Batuu figures heavily into that. In fact, I think that's actually a planet that you can visit when you go visit the theme park.
Okay.
Batuu is really key in the Thrawn series. And the Grisks are this new alien race that are kind of similar to the Yuuzhan Vong in a lot of ways. So I'm really interested to see how they do it. But yeah, there's definitely some action in it, political stuff. Krennic is like kind of involved in this. And he's got like an assistant director guy, Ronan, who's sort of like his representative and everything. And he's trying to trip up Thrawn a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it's just really, really, really cool. Okay. So, you know, I definitely recommend it. But, you know, all this reading has made me thirsty, man.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Cantina.
Absolutely.
All right, what do we got first?
All right, so we have the Rogue One prequel, which is pretty much the Cassian Andor series that has been announced and will be released in 2021 on Disney Plus.
Oh, did they actually? They said 2021 now?
Yep, 2021.
Okay,
it's going to be released.
Yeah. See, once again.
Yeah. See,
more news that I ended up missing somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so much. But it's basically being billed as, and that's why I asked about Thrawn, because this particular show is being billed more as a spy type thriller. I guess it's kind of the Valkyrie type thing, where you kind of have that vibe of, you know, there's so much under underhanded things going on, and people are like, on both sides of the fence type of situations, and it sounds really cool. Alan Tudyk is coming back to play.
Yeah, that I heard.
K2SO.
And that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So glad that they decided to do that. Because he was a guy. Now, I know
he was
that
beloved, yeah.
He wasn't beloved by you, though.
Well,
have you actually softened your opinion on him over the years since Rogue One or whatever? Because you really were just kind of like, I don't get this.
I mean, I didn't understand at first why he was. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, he had some good comedic elements, but I mean, I just didn't understand why everybody was just tripping over him so much. But I mean, he was definitely a cool character, definitely. But I mean, I hopefully, in this particular series, I get to see him a lot more, and maybe it will change my mind a lot.
Well, I'm wondering when they're actually gonna, when that's gonna happen, because we had that one-off comic or whatever, that Cassian K2SO comic that I think it actually went a little bit into the origin, like how they met and stuff. So I'm wondering when this is actually going to pick up, because that's really going to be the key to me. Is like when does this take place? I mean, obviously it's before Rogue One. We get that,
right?
But how far back though?
Well, let me see here. I just actually saw something.
Yeah, trying to make it like it was an accident. Well, I just happened to see something, although you've been like searching it or. It's okay. That's what the internet is for, everybody.
That's right. So, I mean, they say the series will be a prequel to, of course, Rogue One, following Andor as he fights against the Empire in the early years of the Rebel Alliance. So I'm assuming that it's probably, I guess, maybe around, I'm going to probably assume it's going to be maybe right before Catalyst. That's what I'm getting the vibe of.
Yeah, it could be.
Like maybe roughly around that Catalyst time period.
Right. Then I wonder if they're going to have Krennic be involved in any way.
He may be.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked him. I really liked his character.
Yeah, his character was actually cool. It was a sort of a different spin on the Imperial characters, and he was just so funny because he was so frustrated all the time at what he saw as ineptitude, and yet he would do stuff.
You're right.
And he was like the ultimate backstabbing politician, and then he had the whole thing with Tarkin, and that's covered a lot in Thrawn Treason, by the way. There's a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, I hope the same thing. I hope that we get to see, because everybody's been talking about The Mandalorian, obviously, because it's coming out pretty soon. But,
right.
The Rogue One prequel series, or what we always been calling the Cassian Andor series, that actually has a lot of potential to me.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, because it kind of covers it definitely covers a area where we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then I really love the aspect of, which we got hints of it in Rogue One, where you're learning that the Rebel Alliance, in order to get this information, you can't always be, you're the good guy, but you don't always have your hands clean. Yeah,
you're not like the
the Boy Scout,
shining armor. Yeah, it's not so black and white. There's a little bit. They're a little dirty. They they have to operate in maybe a not so noble way all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is that the Rebel Alliance was definitely painted as this ultra noble, almost like that Superman good guy type of thing.
Exactly.
Whereas really they're a little bit more Batman.
Yeah.
rather than Superman, and that's fine, because again, not necessarily that I think that, I know a lot of times people talk about, it reflects reality and stuff like that. I don't necessarily think that that's the part of it that, why it would work. I think it works because these guys had to have gotten their hands dirty. Well, yeah, I mean, just if you look at the way that just the whole Star Wars story unfolded, like what we knew as soon as A New Hope came, we knew that there was this faction they were undermining. I mean, they're rebels.
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly.
So innocent people got killed.
Well, when you rebel, you're not always going to do the quote unquote. Right. You're not following the rules. Yeah. I mean, because you're rebelling. So,
and I think that's one of the things that the prequels actually did a really good job in. Was it not so much? I think the novels actually, believe it or not, are doing really the best job at this, but as far as showing how the Empire actually is kind of an extension of the Republic. I mean, they're kind of the legitimate government.
Right.
You know, and it's sort of like, and, you know, naturally a lot of the citizens of the universe, although they were somewhat oppressed by this government, there's a lot of innocent people within that, too, that actually felt like they were doing the right thing.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so what about you guys? Are you guys looking forward to Cassian Andor? I mean, I know it's been buried, you know, with all this Rise of Skywalker, Mandalorian stuff, all this stuff that we're getting. But what about Cassian? Any love out there for Cassian? You know, let us know at Head to Head SW on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual stuff.
Yes.
We love to hear from you guys.
Come on down.
That's right. So what do we got now?
All right.
Ooh, the Emperor.
Yes.
Our favorite guy.
Do it. So there's been a lot of rumors.
Yeah, you don't say.
There's been a lot of rumors dealing with good old Sheev Palpatine, a.k.a. the Emperor, and his connection with Rey. So the biggest thing is that that's been leaked for the Rise of Skywalker is that Rey is the granddaughter of Palpatine, which a lot of people kind of speculated before.
Oh, yeah. We've even said that on the show.
And
basically,
now,
that was one of the things I was hoping for.
Yeah. And then now this is a lot of people are really saying that she's also a clone.
Yeah. That's the camp that I'm falling in, by the way.
Now, I'm going to kind of hold some of my comments because for the feature topic. Yeah. Because it kind of plays into that. Yeah. But how do you...
Well, we could discuss that because if you think about it, the Rey part is really only one small part of that featurette.
True.
So, I mean, this is kind of like we're talking about the Emperor's connection to Rey. So this is...
Yeah. I mean, now, with her being... I like that idea. That would definitely explain her ability to use the Force the way that she does.
By the way, I am vigorously nodding my head for all those because I know this isn't video yet.
Yes. You kind of look like the little bobblehead.
Well, but then again, I mean, the Palpatine connection would too. Like if she was a granddaughter, I mean, but the clone thing, there's a lot of things where I think it would make sense. Number one, it does tie in the prequels a little bit. It also, Palpatine was completely obsessed with that whole idea. JJ actually shot that whole scene, remember, for The Force Awakens with Luke's hand floating or something like that. And, that's where the DNA comes from. The fact that Rey feels that connection to that lightsaber and is having these visions, the clone thing would explain that. The other thing, I didn't think about this until I read about it somewhere, is that when you look at that vision she had in The Last Jedi, where there was a bunch of her in that cave, and they all snapped their fingers and did all that. And it was kind of like everybody was waiting that, for that whole parent reveal and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I honestly think, wow, you know what? That could actually be her getting the answer that I'm a clone. Wow. And then, of course, we're going to talk about it later, but the whole dark Rey thing, that could be another clone. Yeah. Because the rumors go even further, because it's like, he created this army of Skywalker DNA Jedi or Sith, I guess. And that the Rey that we know is the one clone that broke away. And, either maybe Luke helped her escape or somebody helped her escape and hit her off on a planet. And so now she has to go and, face these others. So
then I see with that, one, I do like and people have been kind of complaining about I don't want to be a clone, that type of thing. But I mean, it's not unprecedented because, look, you had a whole thing called the Clone Wars. Yeah.
Boba Fett technically is.
And I was just about to go to that. I was just about to say that. And that was, thinking about that, it's like, okay, with Boba Fett, because, Jango's like, well, part of his payment was he wanted an unaltered clone for himself. And so, of course, we knew that Palpatine was the one who kind of set up the whole cloning facility in the first place. So it stands to reason, if you're trying to preserve yourself, if you're always trying to have a piece of you left, let's just face it, Palpatine, wasn't on, Plenty of Fish or something, or, Tinder trying to, score up some dates. So I'm just assuming that, it's like, okay, you know what? I want a kid, or I want something that, and I want my own legacy to survive. And he was always trying to ensure that, whether it was with Vader, or Anakin at the time, which he was grooming, but in case that failed, and that's the thing about Palpatine that I love, is that he's always the consummate like chess player.
Yeah,
like,
he's always thinking like 3, 4, 10 steps ahead.
Yeah, he's always watching the board and seeing what's going on and what could happen. And he's always, okay, and he has stuff tucked away over here, tucked away over there. People don't even know, or they're on planets that people never heard of.
Even his own people. Like, if you look at it, Dooku actually was somewhat unaware of a lot of his plans. Mm-hmm. You know, and I mean, it was kind of funny because Palpatine's brilliance, where he actually set Dooku up as kind of the face of the separatist movement while he was running the Republic basically as chancellor. And it was almost like he's basically like defeating himself. I mean, it was just all so brilliant how he set himself up to become basically the supreme leader of the Emperor. And
it's like, I don't even think Dooku realized that they were one and the same person.
Yeah, right. Like Darth Sidious. That's a good question.
I've always wondered that, but I don't think he really even knew that.
Well, I mean, I think he did ultimately. If you want like an in-movie, like in-universe explanation for that, when they were dueling, when he was dueling Anakin and Obi-Wan, obviously, you know, Palpatine, quote unquote, was sitting there and he was kind of coaching him and stuff. And then when he was like, kill him now, and like Dooku's looking at him like, wait, I'm your apprentice.
Well, and I think that might have been the time that he realized, because the voice changed. Because he realized he's always been like, oh, Anakin.
Yeah,
you know,
like grandfatherly.
Yeah,
Palpatine.
And then now all of a sudden he's like, do it. And he's like, whoa, wait a minute. And he probably sensed that dark side of the Force at that moment, like, huh? Like, wait, I know that presence. And by then it's too late.
That's why, honestly, I really wish that they had actually shot and included, because, you know, sometimes they shoot and then they don't include stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But I wish they had actually shot and included that whole extended scene that the novel had.
Yeah.
The novelization had, like, that thing would have been like probably half the movie if they had done it, but man,
yeah,
that was just so hilarious. And it was funny because you're actually seeing the ultimate bad guy, the Emperor, interacting with Anakin and Obi-Wan and kind of like on this little adventure. And he's like a total Sith and they have no idea.
Yeah.
Zero clue. And he is all having to like
play, you know,
and they're getting into all these like situations that he could easily get him out of.
Yeah, he's a total Clark Kent in this situation. He's like
completely.
He's like the bumbling Christopher Reeves, you know. And then it's like all he had to do is take off the glasses, and all of a sudden, you know, he's the Emperor. So
yeah, and it just, you know. But then now let's talk about the other one though. Let's talk about the grandfather possibility. Yeah,
the grandfather possibility. I mean, I'm not so much a fan of. I like the clone thing better.
Yeah, well, that's my thing. The grandfather thing is cool, and that was actually what I was hoping for at first, until the clone thing started to come up, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Well, now, from what I've heard, like I said, there's a bunch of different stories out, but actually they said she's kind of like an amalgamation of a lot of people. It's like Palpatine, Luke.
Well, yeah, the clone thing, yeah, it supposedly took took DNA from Anakin, from Luke, from himself, and create like this ultimate Jedi,
this super
Sith weapon or something. Yeah. And then, of course, you know, he went to the unknown region, somehow survived, and then built this whole Sith fleet, and now he's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I mean, the one rumor that I hope isn't true, there was a recent Reddit leak.
Okay.
I sent it to you like, I don't know, a day or two ago or something, where on one hand, it would be intriguing. I have to admit, if they went this direction, it would be intriguing. It wouldn't necessarily fit with Palpatine's character, but it would be really interesting to see. And the whole idea is he ended up wanting Rey to basically join him again or something like that, because at some point when Anakin betrayed him and all that, he realized that he had kind of made a mistake, and he really wanted family, and he wanted somebody to have a connection with or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually he's trying to set Kylo and Rey up to take over the Empire because he's kind of old and weak, and you know, it's almost like not
That
really
father.
it's not really a redemption on his part because he's still
Evil.
yeah, he still wants to take over the universe, but he realizes that family really is the more important thing, and he wants that bond and that connection.
Yeah, I'm not that. Yeah,
And it's like it would be an intriguing thing, I have to admit.
I mean, it would, but I think with the whole, I could see him doing it for, you know, it's kind of like, hey, kids, you need to take over the family business type thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's.
But even then, it's kind of like the problem that I have with the theory, which is why, you know, I don't really think that supposed leak is real, is because even in the canon books, right, like in the Aftermath trilogy, they set the whole thing up where his whole idea was, okay, if I'm dead, then the Empire doesn't deserve to go on. And so he had this whole thing to where he ended up like basically gathering the entire Empire up into one place and then blowing them up.
Right.
You know, spoiler alert. Still fun to read the book, though, guys. Trust me. But yeah, that was basically it. That was a whole battle at Jakku.
Yeah. And I think,
I mean, obviously that plan was thwarted, and that's what that battle ended up becoming. But I mean, the point is, that was his whole idea and mindset.
Yeah. But I like I said, I think the whole clone thing is just, it makes more sense.
Yeah, it actually makes sense within the context of the entire saga. Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily get the whole connection to the lightsaber thing. I think that's a bit much, but.
Well, I mean.
You know, to me, it's just
I mean,
like,
I guess,
okay.
yeah, but you got to remember, though, the crystals are actually alive and they bond with. So from that standpoint, it's not a completely inanimate object. And if it's a lightsaber, if she has, I guess, the idea, because, yeah, you would think that, okay, that would be something that if she were around and she saw Luke and it was important to him, and then if she were related to him somehow, which I guess if she has some of his DNA, you could say she is, but yeah, then, you know, these other theories are that, you know, once Luke was gone or something, Leia completed Rey's training, and
yeah, now that's something that I've heard too, is that Leia is going to be the one who's actually going to complete Rey's training. So,
which should be interesting because, I mean, we do know that Leia did train, and that's canon, you know, that she did train. Now, and she decided that she would rather be a little bit more political than anything else, but, I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
My thing is, though, with the theories that were out there, with the supposed leaks that involve Leia, I can't see them having enough extra footage to cover that storyline. That's my problem with it. It's like I'm reading this whole, like, you know, these leaks and stuff that have all this stuff with Leia, and I'm like, okay, guys, you know, there's just not that much stuff. And especially if that wasn't the direction that JJ was initially going, then, I don't know, you're going to have to work some movie magic on that one.
Yeah.
But we'll see. What about you guys? What do you think the Emperor's connection to Rey is? You know, let us know at Head to Head SW, because we really want your thoughts on this. A lot of you guys already, you know, talked to us about it. And of course, you know, our new good friends over at Sith Talkers, they're actually commenting on a lot of the stuff as I comment on theirs. If you guys get a chance, listen to their latest episode. Was really cool. Last week, I think it was called Sizzle Reel. They actually dealt with the featurette too. So I listened to that, and a lot of their theories were pretty cool, and some of them were hilarious too, because, you know, they'll make some jokes about this stuff, but primarily the 3PO one was hilarious. You guys got to check it out. Listen to Sith Talkers if you get a chance. All right, what do we got next?
All right, new comic book that hints that Snoke was controlled by Palpatine all along.
Now, which comic was this?
It's a new one that actually hasn't been released yet. It's actually supposedly coming out pretty soon.
Yeah, but I mean, is it... Because you know how they have the different series of comics, so they got like there's the Star Wars one, there's...
I think this one is going to be called like First Order or something like that.
Okay, yeah, I think that is...
I think that's the name, if I recall correctly. But basically, it's going to kind of delve into the fall of Kylo Ren,
Okay.
And especially, his or Snoke's manipulation of Kylo. And it's basically kind of like taking him. He's going to kind of, be that.
That's good, because that's something that I've been really curious about, because Leia and Han totally knew who Snoke was.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, he's been under control of, Snoke all this time. And I'm like, well, you guys know who he is. And
why don't we?
Right. It's kind of like, okay, even they know who he is. And they know the whole history. Well, it's because Snoke had that influence on him. And it's like, and you guys are cool with that? I mean, did you, I don't know, try? I mean, the thing is, how did Snoke get involved with him in the first place? That's what I want to know. Because he must have seemed like somewhat of a benign influence in order to actually even get around him that much.
Okay, well...
At least that's what it seems to me.
So this issue is going to be released pretty soon. It's actually September 11th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How kind of eerie, but yeah, September 11th. And it's actually called, the name of the comic is...
Oh, it'll be this week then.
Yeah, Age of Resistance.
Okay.
And it has Snoke on the cover right here, sitting on his throne and whatnot.
I'll have to get that one.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually going to cover like the brutal training of Kylo.
That's a must-have.
Yeah, will the sadistic Snoke break his tormented protege? Has he underestimated the son of Han and Leia? The plot summary says, from the ashes of the evil galactic empire rises the First Order, a villainous sect of fanatics united by the supreme leader Snoke, with a promising new apprentice and the limitless power of the dark side of the Force to command. Snoke is poised to crush the New Republic and take over the galaxy. Fail or kill it.
Well, that's, guess that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so definitely.
See, they're coming out with all these really cool comics and books, and you're getting stuff that leads up to that. I need more time. And then, of course, now you got The Mandalorian coming out. This is going to be a crazy time to try to be a Star Wars fan here.
But they're actually going to kind of, I did see a clip, I mean, not a clip because it's a comic, but I guess a picture.
Like a panel.
Yeah, if you will. But this is really cool, though. So Snoke actually takes Kylo to Dagobah, basically where Yoda was. And he feels like, of course, all the life force that's there, but then he takes him to the cave. And in the cave, well, instead of Vader, it was Luke in the cave. And so now they're going to have basically a kind of flip version of.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So yeah, like I'm really, really interested to see that.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty sweet. But what about you guys? You think you like this whole thing with Snoke or what?
Yeah, I mean, I would really get to find out like really where he comes from.
I do, because it's one of the things that I think that, I often said that we don't necessarily have to get this whole expository thing in movies, but they need to come up with a novel or a comic series or something that explains him.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because, we know JJ's going to tie up everything, all the loose ends and everything like that. So if they're releasing this comic before the Rise of Skywalker, how much are they really going to delve or deal with Snoke in this movie?
Honestly,
or is it kind of just like, all right, this is where he came from?
Yeah, I think it's going to be like a sentence or something. Yeah. Like it's just going to be, hey, for all I know, it could be even in the opening crawl.
Right.
I mean, I don't think they're going to necessarily dedicate a lot of time to it, but I do think they're going to mention it. Mm-hmm. Or at least mention something within the context. Like it might not be this whole exposition, but it might be, well, because Snoke was whatever. And then, of course, these comics and books and stuff like that will probably go in depth. Yeah.
I mean, I would love to have or see a conversation like, Rey asking Kylo, like, what happened to you or something like that. It was like, well, after this happened, Snoke came and found, just kind of give us and that might be in a flashback type thing or,
Exactly.
It'd be like Family Guy, like,
or it'd be like Scooby Doo. They ripped the Snoke mask off. Emperor Palpatine,
right? Or it's like the Family Guy thing. It's like, remember that time when?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Kind of reminds me of that time when.
And then to a flashback. Yeah. So that's really, that's coming out September 11th. I'm really, really looking forward to getting that soon as it comes out, because I'm just anxious to see,
I'm
like,
gonna pre-order it tonight.
Yeah, because that's just like,
that's going to be one of those must-have things. I think there's a new Vader comic out too. Not 100% sure, but I think I saw something on a new Vader thing. They seem to, like, that whole Dark Visions thing or whatever that one comic was. I don't think it went beyond like 3 or 4 issues. It was cool, but it was weird, I have to admit. But I think they got a new one out now. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure they do have they always have a Vader comic.
I'm just wondering how many issues this whole
this Age of Resistance thing?
Yeah.
I forgot. I actually read about it somewhere, I think, where it talked about it's definitely limited run. I think it's like 5 or 6, something like that. Because again, I think it's kind of like what you said. I think it's leading up to the whole Rise of Skywalker thing. Yeah. But I think it's time to lead up to the exit of Cantina. So finish your drink, mister.
Yes, I'm going to finish this swallow and
quit ordering other rounds.
Hey.
We got some fighting to do.
I fight better when I'm...
Yeah.
Never mind. All right.
You're the one that says it. What do we got next?
We have Duel of the Fates. All right, so this week is the War of the Bounty Hunters.
Yeah, actually, I think this might have come from like Patrick or CJ or one of the readers, I think, brought something up in one of the Facebook comments that we got, or like Facebook messages and stuff, because I talked to a lot of these guys through Facebook Messenger. And I think somebody, that's what it was. I'm pretty sure it was Patrick, too. Patrick, if it was you, let me know. But I'm pretty sure it was you. I could go back and check, but I'm pretty sure it was him. It was like, well, why didn't you guys, on that whole like Boba Fett versus Cad Bane thing, why didn't you include like Jango Fett in
the talks? Yeah,
in the talks. And, the whole thing, of course, was I brought up, well, he's kind of related to Boba Fett, so...
Yes.
It's like we were trying to do that. He's a
clone, so it's kind of like the same guy in a way.
Exactly. But because he was an unaltered clone, he does have a different skill set. So this week, we're going Cad Bane versus Jango Fett.
Well, I'm still going Cad Bane.
I am too. I don't think this is going to be much of a fight.
Yeah.
I hear what people are saying when they talk about Jango Fett. Because actually, I think Patrick thinks that Jango would win this one. And I could see that because, Jango is another one that went up against Jedi.
Yeah.
He's another one that, he was an incredibly skilled fighter.
He went up against Obi-Wan pretty much when Obi-Wan is in his prime.
Yeah. And the other thing you could say about Jango was the entire clone troopers were basically based off of him. And look at how amazing they are.
Yeah, definitely.
Still going Cad Bane, though.
With all being said.
Yeah, with all that being said, if you really look at a lot of the canon examples of Cad Bane, and particularly in the Clone Wars series, when he was going up against a ton of Jedi.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He was actually outwitting, and that's the thing about Cad Bane that just makes him so cool and so awesome to me, is that he's so crafty. Like he's like an eel in oil. Like you can't almost. That's
the thing. He's almost like the Palpatine bounty hunter.
Yeah, he's almost kind of like, but with a little Hondo in him.
Yeah,
it's kind of like, that whole, and he's got like a little bit of that Han Solo, like. You don't know how he gets out of these situations when he seems like he's completely down, but he gets out of them. And it's just like, wow, how do you outthink the Force almost?
Exactly.
So,
and granted, he's kind of like and I see this too, because he's sort of the successor to the throne from Jango. It's almost like Cad Bane, his whole prominence came from the fact that, okay, now that Jango's dead, this guy's like the leading guy. you know?
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, you know, I get it. But I mean, he's just basically, I think it's his cunningness. Not only was he really amazing at fighting both other bounty hunters, other people, you know, like the bounties, of course, but Jedi. But this guy's also like, you know, he was hired by Palpatine himself a lot of times. You know, like I remember he had to steal those holocrons or some holocron or something like that. The city has hired him to do. You know, he manages to escape all these crazy situations. I just think that ultimately Cad Bane would just come out the winner.
Yeah, I was doing some reading. So a lot of people, and there's a thing of where Dooku basically said that Cad Bane was pretty much the best bounty hunter.
Dooku would probably know.
Yeah. But, you know, there are people who rebutted and said, like, well, Cad Bane basically started his career a year after the Battle of Geonosis. So that by that point, you know, Jango was dead at that point. So, of course, you know, it's hard to say.
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of like.
But I think that.
He kind of rose into prominence because Jango was out of the picture. And
yeah.
And like I said, it would probably be pretty close because Jango. Like I said, the entire clone army is based on this guy.
Yeah, and I think they would have probably used Cad Bane, but the problem is that his ego. See, the thing is with the Emperor, it's like he wanted like a soldier mentality type person, and Jango fits that profile. Whereas like Cad Bane, he's kind of like the Han Solo. He doesn't really like to answer to anybody. He just kind of does his own thing at his own pleasure. Whereas Jango has more of a. You could definitely tell that he has more of a military, even the way he talks, he carries himself, is more of a military mentality. And that's what the Emperor wanted, somebody who was just like a super, almost like a Captain America, you know, kind of guy where it's like, okay, I can just, he has all the genetics and all the profiling and all the experience and knowledge. It's just, I need that as opposed to the cunningness of Cad Bane, which could be harder to tame.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I first saw Cad Bane, he just always seemed like he was a little bit more threatening and a little bit off balance in a way. Like he was more just like evil.
Yeah.
Like Jango, I never really looked at as particularly evil.
Yeah, he was
more of a
typical bounty hunter like you have now.
Bounty hunter, yeah. Like actually, I think that the Mandalorian character is going to be a lot like Jango.
Yeah, I was about to say that's what I thought it was at first. Quite frankly, when I first saw it, I was like, "Dude, it's Jango."
Yeah, I mean, because even Boba Fett. I mean, Boba Fett kind of has the same, somewhat of the same attitude, but Jango just seems to be a little bit more practical. A little bit. What's the word? It's kind of like that. Naturally, I'm gonna forget about it on this, but you know, he's just pragmatic. That's it. You know, he just. Whereas, like, Cad Bane has, like, I don't know, there's just something about that guy that's a little bit more, you know, malevolent, I guess is the best way to put it. But what about you guys? What do you think? You think we're right? Or do you think, like, some people who listen to this show, that Jango would probably be the guy? I'm really interested to hear you guys' thoughts.
Yeah, because it's really close, honestly.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
It's really
absolutely close. All right. Well, that settles it for our Duel of the Fates. Once again, it wasn't exactly a duel. It was more like us against you guys. But what do we got next?
All right. Next, we have From a Certain Point of View.
Just getting through them today.
All right. So this week, we are talking about a wonderful featurette that we got the chance to see from D23.
Yeah, no, this is kind of interesting too, because a lot of people, I want to clear this up right off the bat. This is not a trailer, guys.
That's correct.
Everybody keeps calling this the second trailer. It is not the second trailer. Okay, there's no narrative here. The whole idea was this is a featurette, like you said, that was seen at D23. It was a bunch of scenes.
Because you can't, because it had half the thing was basically old footage.
Right?
Stuff that we've already seen.
Yeah, there's basically, they could put together a trailer like that. But the idea is this is not the official second trailer. That's probably something we're going to get probably before another Monday Night Football game.
Yeah, probably somewhere like
probably early October.
Yep.
That's probably when the second trailer is going to hit. But even Disney themselves is kind of like, guys, this is not a trailer. Even though if you want to do a YouTube search for this, you would search trailer number 2.
Yep.
It's not a trailer.
It's not a tumor.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, this is a featurette. That's why we're titling it this way, which is probably why we won't get near as many hits for our podcast this week as other people that might have called it a trailer. But you know what? I'm going to sacrifice that for being correct. So we're going to do what we usually do. We're going to go through this thing. So what do we got here? Like you said, it's going to open up with a bunch of
the twin sons
footage. Yep. There's the twin sons. Of course, with some nice music. Luke, we got Obi-Wan, we got the Millennium Falcon going, Princess Leia, Han Solo, R2-3PO, the Death Star stuff, the medals, which of course Chewie didn't get his medal, AT-ATs. All this stuff reviewing what we already know. And I think what they're trying to do is show you where this thing came from.
Yeah, it's like the culmination of everything.
Yeah. It's kind of like reminding you got the lightsaber duel between... And of course we remember this. Passing all we know.
1,000 generations live in you now.
1,000 generations live in you now. More prequel. Now they're bringing all the prequel stuff into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting some of the sequel trilogy. We see some images of Rey, Han Solo, BB-8, Kylo, Leia. Now we get to the new stuff. So this Christmas... Okay, so the first thing that we start to see is very similar to what we saw in the actual trailer, where the gang's all together, they're overlooking
the ruins of the Death Star.
Yeah, and then now it says the story of a generation. Okay, and then it comes to the scene that a lot of people were talking about. You get a bunch of I want to say Republic, but I guess Resistance ships coming out of hyperspace. You get X-Wings.
B-Wings.
Yes, the return of the B-Wings.
The B-Wing is back.
The B-Wing is back. And then, of course, you have other, capital ships and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But it's a Star Destroyers.
Yes.
That's the one.
Man, that was awesome.
But one of the big things that everybody's talking about, which I actually had to go back and look at it, they're not First Order Star Destroyers.
Right.
They're Imperial Star Destroyers. Mm-hmm. And so that was something. What do you think that actually means? Let's get this discussion going.
Yeah, the Imperial, that could just be.
They had a little bit of red on them.
Yeah, I think they're something that Palpatine kind of just had back in one of his hidden facilities, probably.
Yeah, I honestly think that this is Palpatine's new Sith Force. Mm-hmm. That's what I actually think it is. You know how we were introduced to the Sith Troopers?
Yeah.
Basically, I was looking at, because this is a good time to bring up a poll. I actually did a poll. Of course, there was only very limited votes, but I was like, okay, those Star Destroyers seen in D23 featurette, they seem to be from, the Imperial era, not the First Order, but what do you guys think? And, overwhelmingly, it's the Empire. And that's the thing that I think is going to be a key point. I really think that this is a fleet that Palpatine has had in the unknown region somewhere, and that he's been building that's left over from...
Yeah, the old guard, basically.
Yeah, from the old guard. And it's going to be really interesting because now it makes you wonder, are we going to see a Resistance versus First Order versus Empire kind of thing?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the cool thing I love about JJ is one, I mean, the beautiful, glorious shots this man just comes up with, man, is just, wow. First of all, from that, I'm totally a fanboy when it comes to his cinematography. But after that, though, I really do love the fact of him bringing that back. You know, it kind of gives you that feel of like, okay, when we hear Palpatine's back and you start seeing like the Star Destroyers from the original trilogy, it just definitely puts you back like, all right, that's got to be his stuff. You know, and it's really like, okay, what's going to happen? Are they just joining with the First Order and it's all one big movement? And then it's just the resistance against, because the big thing is now is at the end of Last Jedi, you know, there was no more basically resistance. I keep want to say rebellion.
Yeah, I know.
Resistance.
Old habits.
Yeah, I know. So there's no more resistance. And Leia's had to go try to figure out like, okay, well, how come none of you guys answered the call? Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious to see, okay, well, now there's got to be somebody who's got to, you know, stand up and say, hey, especially now with Palpatine being back, that might be the turning point where everybody says, okay, you know what? If we don't do something now, we're lost. So I think it's going to be just one big, massive, almost like, you know, Avengers Endgame type situation where...
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because, again, going back to a lot of those rumors that were floating around, you know, there was this whole thing that, you know, Kylo was going to be killed or something, and then the Force ghosts of Luke and Leia are going to join in to fight with Rey to fight against Palpatine and, like, all this crazy stuff. And this featurette is somewhat giving you the idea that there's certain things that can happen. So... let's go. We got this Finn and... oh, man.
Kira?
No. Was that her? No. What was her name? The new girl?
Yeah, Kira. I think that's her name.
Well, that was the one in Rogue One. Well, you can look that up. So it comes to an end, and now we have another thing. The C-3PO with red eyes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of theories behind that, too. So one of them has the support of a comic book. It was the Dr. Aphra series, I think. Some of this was actually done also in the Vader comics because Aphra was in the earlier ones for like the 2017 series, I believe. It could have been the 2015, though. But one of those Vader comics she was in, and there were basically kind of like these evil versions of 3PO and R2. And they were like these, it was like these Empire protocol droid, astromech droid, but it was like this 3PO unit was insane. It was kind of like that HK-47 character or whatever from Knights of the Old Republic, where he couldn't wait to torture people and, you know, and do some other stuff. Now, the theories that behind the 3PO with red eyes... there's one that was in that one leak that I was talking about where it's talking about how there's a Sith artifact or something that's got this inscription on it. Nobody can read it. And 3PO didn't even know the language. Mm-hmm. So they had to like reprogram him to be able to read Sith language. Mm-hmm. And that's why he has the red eyes. Another one is... and this is probably the one that, if anything, I would kind of hope that this would be the one, is that going with that whole Dr. Aphra comic thing where, you know, you had that killer protocol droid thing, is that there's an actual battle mode that you can put the protocol droids in.
Yeah.
And that's the theory that I really hope is the case for this. Yeah,
that's the one I heard too. And then and Anthony Daniels was basically talking about, you know, how that whole scene, it was crazy for him. And then, of course, it was like completely mind-boggling for him, for that character. And so I'm thinking that's what it's probably going to be. Yeah,
that seems to me, too, like where they're going. And, of course, the other one...
kind of reminds me of the whole Spider-Man thing when it's like kill mode. And he's like, whoa, yeah. That's totally what it reminded me of.
And you could play that for, like, first of all, it would be a really cool way to go out. Let 3PO actually
get some action and just go crazy.
But it would also be kind of funny, too.
Oh, hilarious.
You know, you're seeing this, like, killer 3PO, and it's just, I mean, that would just be so wild to see on screen. And then, of course, the final theory, well, we all know it's not really the final theory, but the last one that I had heard anyway was that, you know, Palpatine's essence somehow, possessed 3PO, and then it kept, like, jumping around and everything. So, you know, you guys are going to have to tell me what you guys think about that, too. Like, what about the 3PO with red eyes thing? That was actually, honestly, that 3PO with red eyes intrigued me more than any of the other shots.
It's creepy, actually.
It is. It's like, it was probably the most unexpected because the whole Dark Ray thing that we'll get to in a minute, but, you know, you kind of thought, all right, this was something that could happen. She was always seemingly flirting with the dark side anyway. And let's face it, it's not unprecedented. 3PO with red eyes is like a completely different thing that you would
take the most harmless puppy in the world and you turn it into a pit bull. I mean, that's basically what it looks like.
Exactly. And it's just like, it's just something that I never, you know, I'm looking at that, watching this featurette going, whoa. I mean, I never expected that. But then, of course, they have this, I don't know, some sort of a super weapon coming down, destroying like part of a planet. And then, of course, which there's rumors that these Star Destroyers are called Death Star Destroyers, which some people think is kind of lame. I actually think it's kind of cool. The idea is what they did was they took some of the Death Star's weaponry and put them on Star Destroyers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That actually makes sense.
That makes sense because now they're more, one, they're definitely way more powerful.
Yeah.
And then two, is like, okay, now you have
a whole fleet of them.
You have a fleet of them, but then that's, at the same time, if it has even like maybe a third order of that Death Star power, because the problem with the Death Star is that it had to be in proximity.
Yep.
You know, it had to travel through hyperspace.
And it was really slow to move.
Yeah, it's
really
a big thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But now you got these Star Destroyers that can move through hyperspace a whole lot faster.
Yeah.
With the armament of a Death Star.
And then, you can like spread them all out. And
especially if you surround the planet with those things.
Absolutely. So that's cool. And then, of course, you have Rey like in what looks like could be an Endor-like thing going where she throws her lightsaber through her trees and there's this little, you know, like that same little practice ball that Luke was using. It's kind of a similar thing. Okay. All right, so up until then, it's kind of like Palpatine says your journey, which that was another thing that really took me by surprise in this, is you're hearing a Palpatine narration. You know, it's like not just a laugh this time.
Right.
So we know.
He's talking.
Absolutely. And as Daisy Ridley said, he's really intricate to this whole, plot or whatever. Like he's a very important
piece of this puzzle.
Yeah. And, you know, we just saw some more imagery. You know, there was like the shot, of course, of Rey and Kylo fighting on the Death Star thing. And
I love the shot of like the lightsaber just igniting all the way through.
Yeah.
Like, wasn't no breaks in it. It was just full out.
That's right.
It's like, all right, he's coming. He's not playing this today.
No, and I mean, and that's the thing, too, is I think we're going to see a lot of character development, even more so with Kylo this time, too. I mean, not that we haven't. We have, but I really think that you're going to see, like, more of a journey with him.
Well, the interesting thing is, so far with Kylo, was like all the images we've seen is he hasn't had his helmet on yet.
Right. That's true. I mean, we know that he puts it back together. We see him welding it.
Well, that wasn't even him. That was like a fuzzy, furry hand that was doing. So we don't even know if that's really Kylo.
Was it?
Because in the initial trailer, if you look at the hand that's actually welding it, it's got like a bunch of fur on it, like Chewbacca or some
Maybe
Ewok.
You had some gloves on or something. There is that winter. What's that planet called?
Got a chinchilla glove or something.
Yeah, it could be. You know, where that new girl's on there. Kerry Russell's character, basically.
Oh, Jenna.
Yeah. It's like Kijimi or something like that is the planet that she's from. That there's going to be a lot of stuff that takes place on that. So we had him say, okay.
Your journey.
And now nears its end. Then we hear Darth Vader breathing, and then we see the big scene. And then, of course, the logo. So, I mean, pretty much that was the thing with what everybody's calling the Swiss Army saber.
Right.
Where it's a double-bladed lightsaber, but it starts
folded
out where it like folds together, and then it unfolds, and it's Rey with what looks like a Sith hood.
Yeah, it looks like nunchucks almost, but then they fold into...
Yeah, they fold out into a double-bladed lightsaber.
Yeah, so I know everybody's been clamoring for her to actually have a staff, so maybe this is their way of doing it.
Well, the thing that we got to address, though, is do you think... I mean, where do you think this fits in? Is this a vision? Is it...
I think it may be either a vision of failure, like, okay, if I don't, or if I allow myself...
Like Luke in the cave.
Yeah, I think it's kind of reminiscent of that. Or at best, it may be a clone, another clone that she might have to face herself, or like, almost kind of like a real life thing. Because like in the thing with Luke, it was all like a vision almost that felt real. Mm-hmm. But this might actually be real. And so it may be harder to kill yourself. Saying if you saw someone who looked exactly like your own doppelganger and you have to kill yourself, saying that might be a little bit daunting as opposed to something that's just like a vision.
Well, and it just makes me wonder how they're going to fit this in, because I've actually been leaning more and more over the last couple of weeks that Rey's a clone. Mm-hmm. It actually makes sense from the bigger narrative, but her being a clone doesn't necessarily mean that the Dark Rey is a clone. It could be, like you said, too. It could just be that it's a vision. Or it could be like this is what she was designed for, but she wasn't. Mm-hmm. Which I guess
who you were supposed to be.
Yeah, this is who you were supposed to be. It could be that maybe she pulls a Luke from that Dark Horse comic series where she actually does go dark for a little bit and then comes back.
Yeah, I mean, and the kind of thing about this is funny because I was thinking about Kylo. He's like, well, you've known all along. She's like, I'm nobody from. Well, even when Luke, when she said, where are you from? She was like, I'm nobody from nowhere. He was like, no one's from nowhere. He's like, where are you from? Jakku. He's like, all right, well. But I think that, the fact that she, the fact that I think that if she's a clone, that kind of really just is going to make her feel like, okay, I have nothing really, like I have no parents. I have, I'm not, what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like you feel almost like,
yeah, I mean,
like some people, like how some people feel like when they're adopted.
Right.
And you never meet your parents, and you just kind of feel like you're alone out here because, you never met anybody who looks like you, or you have nothing to tie yourself to because you're a clone. So I think that's going to kind of screw with her a lot.
That's exactly the reason why I hope that she is a clone.
Yeah, because I think that's what's really going to create a lot of conflict within her. Because, that's even what we heard in Return of the Jedi, it was like that conflict of, okay, going from light to dark, or, okay, you're trying to save your father, or do you listen to your son? That there's that pull. And so like, what's going to pull Rey is like, okay, well, look, you're just another number.
Well, and no matter which theory is true, Kylo's statement essentially is correct. If she is a clone, she might have been under the care of drunken junk traders. Mm-hmm. If Palpatine's her grandfather, then her parents might have been nobodies, but her grandfather was a somebody.
Well, the other thing, too, is that I'm thinking that ship that we saw in Force Awakens. Honestly, I think that's probably, somebody was at the cloning facility, saw what was going on, grabbed Rey, and just tried to like
hide her away.
That
could be.
And I think that's kind of like where
See, that to me is more intriguing, even though it was funny, because for a long time on this podcast, if you guys go back and listen to some of our earlier stuff, which you're more than welcome to do, basically I had said it would have been intriguing if Rey went dark and Kylo went light.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really cranked up when I saw this featurette because it's like, oh, no way. Are they actually going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've really been cranked up about this whole concept that she could be a clone, and then there might be a dark clone that she has to fight, or maybe that's a vision because she's just confused or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Like this featurette really just blew everything wide open and started people talking again. Yeah,
definitely. And I think I think they did that because I think this is what's going to bring a lot of people back. Like, okay.
Yeah, well, we've often talked about this. It's got to be the movie that does it.
I think everybody's going to be like, okay, whoa, what the heck are they doing now?
Yeah, because at this movie, first of all, we know The Mandalorian's probably going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to come out about a month before this movie does.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the 1-2 punch of The Mandalorian's incredible, and then this movie actually just blows people's minds, Star Wars is back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, we hit a little bit of a speed bump, but it's back to being that flawless, untouchable series again.
Question for you. What do you think the breathing means? The Vader breathing?
I mean, it could be a lot of things. It could be an indication of she's, part of, like, Anakin is part of her DNA, and because if you think about it, they put Vader's breathing in like every trailer for every movie.
Well, I didn't think about it though. It's like, she is an amalgamation. We did hear Luke's voice, we heard Palpatine, and then we hear Vader's breathing.
Yeah,
so that could be the clue right there.
Other than that, it's more foreshadowing and just let's put Vader's breathing in there. So
do you think we're gonna see him?
I think we're going to see Anakin. We might see Vader in a flashback, but I don't actually think we're going to see Vader. I'd be really surprised if we saw Vader.
Okay.
Anakin, I think you almost have to.
Okay.
It's just, there's just too much going on where I think you have to see some sort of an Anakin Force ghost. Now, in what context? It could be a lot of different ones. Who knows? But let us know what you guys think. Usual at Head to Head SW, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And show us like your best, especially on Instagram. We love a lot of these memes that are coming out. Give us your best like Dark Rey meme.
Yeah.
Let's see some of your best Dark Rey memes.
That's pretty cool.
All right. Well, now is time for,
your favorite.
Yeah, my favorite, and something that just kind of like, let's just cleanse our palate and calm down.
We've been revved up for the featurette.
Yeah, exactly. It's time to clear your mind. All right. This is where we answer your questions. What do we got first? Or what do we have first?
We have a question from Carson Nichols.
Okay.
Carson asked the question, do you think that we will see Obi-Wan fade small again like we did in Rebels?
No, because if you really rewatch that whole Rebels scene, it was obviously the first time that they had faced off since, the whole Phantom Menace thing. Because especially if you look at that whole story arc for that whole season, Maul was obsessed with getting revenge on Obi-Wan.
Right.
For what he did to him in Phantom Menace.
Right.
And he was building it up and building it up and building it up, and then he finally gets to face him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets owned again. And, Obi-Wan basically knew, okay, it would actually be interesting to me, because I'm trying to remember on that scene, did they address when Obi-Wan finds out that Maul is still alive?
I don't think so.
I don't either. And that would be interesting to address in the Obi-Wan series.
But what I'm saying is that you think we're going to see that exact same scene, but just in a live version. I think that's the question. Like, are we going to see the scene that we saw in Rebels? Are we going to see that in a live action situation?
In a live action? No, I don't think so. Because, first of all, the Obi-Wan series takes place, 5 8 years after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Well, that scene, Obi-Wan is clearly more the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan. So, I mean, that happens like a lot closer to 4 than 3. So, yeah, it would be cool to see that, especially to see like, you know, like a Darth Maul, like Ray Park and Ewan McGregor
again. That would be awesome.
Again. Yeah, that would be cool. But sorry, Carson, I just don't see it happening. Next.
All right. The next question we have is coming from Howard McKinney. And he asked the question, I will hate it if they make Rey go to the dark side and bring Kylo to the light. What about you?
Nah, you know what? I mean,
we just kind of talked about this a little bit.
We did, but there's something that we've actually talked about several times in previous podcasts. You know, I don't know. This subject comes up not just since we learned the title of The Rise of Skywalker and all that speculation, but I mean, back when we were just episode 9 speculation, you know, we had talked about that, and I actually think that would be intriguing. If you were to just redeem Kylo, again, I'm up for anything because, I mean, as long as the story is good and it fits within the narrative, I'm good with it. But it is a little bit cliched and derivative if you just redeem Kylo. But if you actually bring Kylo to the light, because he was tempted by the light, remember, but then you make Rey go dark, so it's almost like you flip-flop him. That's something we've never really seen before. You know, that would almost have been like if like Dooku was redeemed and then, you know, I don't know, like Anakin went dark.
Well, I mean,
or like if Dooku were redeemed and then Qui-Gon went dark or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like a...
But honestly, I kind of agree with him. Like, I don't want to see Kylo be redeemed. I really don't. I really would like for him to just stay dark.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I don't necessarily, I go back and forth on that. Most of me does not want to see him be redeemed. But if he's going to be redeemed, let's do it in a different way.
Yeah, I feel you. I think for me, I want to see Kylo, because to me, I've seen him, you know, okay, fighting the light, you know, in the last 2 movies. And I would love for Palpatine to finally rid it of him. Because he couldn't do it with Vader. And I would just really love for him to finally, like, okay, get it out of Kylo. And make Kylo just completely dark. He's fully submerged in the dark side.
I think he is anyway. I mean, you know, once he killed his father and then he had the opportunity in The Last Jedi to do it. And it seemed like he was, you know, kind of mulling it over a little bit. Yeah. Like one of the things that actually I found interesting in The Last Jedi was the fact that he and Rey would have those like little talks. You really got more of an insight into what was going on in Kylo's mind. Yeah,
I mean, it was cool. It was like, you know, Sith time.
Yeah,
instead of FaceTime.
Yeah, he was basically just kind of talking, and, you know, it wasn't all this evil, like, I'm going to get you or whatever. I mean, he was being honest. Yeah. You know, and he was really
vulnerable.
Yeah, it was like him being just like a person, but he's essentially a Sith Lord.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, because he was fighting it when he could have killed Leia. Yeah. And he didn't. And then when the other ship fired upon him, he looked hurt by it, like. Yeah. But I mean, he was like, well, I can't do anything about it now.
My point, though, is that he had the chance to go light after that whole duel that he and Rey were doing against the Praetorian Guards, and he chose the darkness. Yeah. So to me, that should just be it.
Yeah, it should be.
And it kind of seemed to be, because he sent the entire force of all the firepower of everything they had against one guy. Man, that's pretty dark.
That's still like one of the... Well, I mean, he kind of had a grudge against Luke, though.
Yeah, but I mean, still, it was like kind of his uncle and stuff, you know? I mean, it's kind of like, look, he was kind of crazy, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, see, the thing is, like, he killed Han, his dad, which his dad probably really didn't do much to him, per se.
No, I mean, in fact, he might have felt... I think that he felt almost abandoned by Han.
Yeah, almost abandoned by him. And then...
As he said that thing to Rey. Like, you know, you're looking at him like a father figure, but, you know, Wasn't that good?
Well, that, and it's like, even when he was talking to Han, he's like, well, although, and this is kind of funny. I just realized this. This is the second time Kylo's pulled the same trick. So in Force Awakens, he's standing on the bridge with Han. He's all like giving the whole misdirection thing. Like, hey, help me.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this. And Han's just thinking like, he's trying to come over, but really it's like he doesn't realize.
No, then you're talking about the whole Snoke thing then?
Yeah, then the whole Snoke thing, like he's turning the thing. He's got it, for his enemy. It's like, Kylo has pulled the same trick twice.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering like, okay, what does he have up his sleeve or his little tunic for Rise of Skywalker with Rey? And I think he's probably going to try that with Rey. Or maybe he might even try it against the Emperor and he's going to lose massively.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's kind of like, you thought Snoke was powerful, man. It's kind of like, don't try any of that stuff with the Emperor.
And that's what I really would love to see, honestly. I really would love to see, like, the Emperor show Kylo the true nature of the dark side and really just show, like, look, you have the power to do, because this is, it makes more sense because he's everything that Vader could have been, because he has all his limbs. He's a whole human. He hasn't lost anything. He's got a little scrape over his eye.
Yeah, and he's got the Skywalker blood in him.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like, Palpatine should really be like chomping at the bit to get to him, because he's finally like got himself a whole Vader almost, or the potential. So
yeah.
That's why I don't want to see him go.
Well, there was all kinds of cool things, too. I mean, one of the things that I thought was cool where he was dark was the fact that, it's like you always had that whole thing like, I always wanted to see Han use a lightsaber. I always wanted to see him kind of deal with the sort of Jedi thing. Well, now his son is kind of like basically a Sith Lord. Mm-hmm. So now he has to go and face him. And it was just kind of really weird to see that dynamic. Han Solo versus like this force wielding maniac, basically. And yeah, being that it was his son was able to manipulate him and do all that, and that was different. And I mean, I think, but see, that's my point, is I think that if they do it in ways that are different, they can make almost anything work. Like, even if you wanted to redeem him, there's a fresh way to do that because his narrative is different. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I would obviously much rather he not be redeemed, because I think there's a lot more you could do with that.
Right.
But what about you guys? What do you ultimately want to see? Well, there's what you want to see and then what you think you'll see. So that's one for you. What do you think they're going to do? We know what you want them to do, but what do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to redeem him?
I'm going to say no. I'm thinking they're going to. I think he's going to die dark.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards that myself. I don't think they're going to redeem him. I think that there's a possibility. Like, I think the possibility is stronger than, it's strong enough that it makes me a little nervous about it. Because if they do redeem him, I don't want it to be like a wasted opportunity. It's like, if you're going to redeem him, make it really cool.
Yeah.
Make it part of a really cool narrative. But I don't think so either. Especially the fact they're bringing the Emperor back. It doesn't feel like the direction they're going.
Yeah, I just really think that Palpatine was really going to try to sink his teeth into Kylo. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, okay, Snow got you started. I'm going to finish it. And you're going to be my perfect weapon to do it.
And this time it would almost be, because really you can look at it a couple of different ways. I mean, Vader did turn to the dark side and join with the Emperor, but I think it would be more interesting to have Kylo join with him, get the true nature of the dark side revealed, figure out where Snoke fit into all this.
Because I think...
But it's just kind of weird to me, though, because it's like, obviously, the Emperor's dealing a lot with Rey. You can you could get that.
Yeah.
That
I
feeling.
think he's going to try. I think he's going to try and get Rey because she has the most potential. Because if she's a clone of him or if a clone of him, Luke, Anakin,
or his
together,
granddaughter,
so
whichever of these rumors is correct, obviously there's a connection there.
Right. So I think he's going to go after that. I think once Rey rejects that, I think it's going to like, okay, you know what? The only person who it will be powerful, because if she's his granddaughter, the only other person who would be powerful enough to really stop it would be Kylo.
Yeah. Because
Kylo is a Skywalker and that blood is...
Well, see, that's why I say him being redeemed actually would be a fresh perspective, because it's sort of like he's this Dark Lord guy. And now if Palpatine comes back, but then he tries to turn Rey, it's sort of like Kylo. Plus, you got to look at the standpoint of if he comes back with the Empire and he's actually trying to reestablish the Empire, and Kylo's like the head of the First Order, he might almost see this as like, hey,
a power trip.
Yeah, there's like a power struggle here, and
but Palpatine could easily fix that.
Well,
I mean, and that's what I'm saying. I think that's what's going to probably happen initially. I think that's initially what's going to happen.
Well, there's also those rumors that, which those actually sound more is that there's like this whole mole in the First Order, and it turns out to be Hux. Mm-hmm. A little 24 type of thing going on, but that almost reminds me of the whole Rebel.
I was just about to say that's really what it reminds me.
Yeah, and I mean that would actually be kind of cool. That's what I'm saying. There's all kinds of like.
Well, it makes sense, especially given everything that's happened in The Last Jedi.
Well, yeah, because the idea is that Hux is looking at Kylo like this guy's insane.
Yeah.
And he's trying to. It's almost like he wants to join with the Resistance to defeat Kylo.
Yeah, that not only that, but it's just kind of like, all right, he realizes that he's not going to be able to be the man in charge. Mm-hmm. So at least if he's like, okay, if I can't, almost like if you can't beat him, join him,
yeah.
Type thing. So,
well, we'll have to see. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up, I think, for our show this week. Mm-hmm. Let us know. Like I said, you got our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram. It's all at head-to-head-SW. You guys, continue writing to us. Let's get into some more of those discussions. Like I said, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Darryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at head-to-head-SW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at head-to-head-swpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.